Turning on your lights in Ontario will get more expensive on April 1st. No kidding. The Ontario Energy Board approved an electricity rate increase, but says consumers will see value in the new plan once they learn how to manage their costs. George O'Neill is a senior manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and he joins us now. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
So ultimately, this is short-term pain for long-term gain, you think?
Yes, that's the goal. The Minister of Energy has put a goal in place to increase the prices of electricity in a measured manner to get to the point where consumers are actually paying the real price. We have been subsidized for a number of years. A lot of people are aware of the previous, infrastructure, the old Ontario Hydro. Lots of debt built up, and clearly we can't continue to sustain that going forward. So there, unfortunately, there needs to be price increases to pay the real cost of electricity.
Ontarians are paying currently what, 4.3 cents per kilowatt hour? Is that
4.7?
4.7.
Yes.
And that is going up, but ultimately most likely to affect small business more so than the average homeowner?
Yes, it does affect small business as well. So-called designated consumers, so residential, farm, small business, anyone that uses around 1,000 kilowatt hours per month of electricity consumption. The large commercial industrial consumers are on a different price plan.
So a 12% boost to your bill at the end of every month or every three, depending on how you're lining it up. What kind of cost do you think that's going to put into the average business?
Well, there are really two tranches of increases. One, the electricity cost for the distribution company itself, for example, in Toronto Hydro, for the distribution rate, just the cost of doing business, which as we all know, tends to go up. The second tranche is the electricity, the commodity itself. Mm-hmm. So coupled together, that's where we get, roughly the 6%, depending on utility. It will increase cost of business. There's a longer term play here, though, that hopefully when we have what are called smart meters, or the technically correct term, interval meters, in place across all small business and residences, that will actually be able to start conserving, and those people will actually be able to take advantage of price reductions.
What makes a smart meter compared to the dumb one I've got now?
Right. The meters we all have in our house now are just electrical meters, essentially. The smart meter is a little computer inside that measures the consumption. It could be every minute if you wanted, but typically in Ontario we set the price every hour. The independent electricity systems operator sets the price every hour. So it'll be measured every hour, the price of electricity. And during the day when the electricity is high, for example, as we come into the summer months, the electricity will be high between roughly 11 in the morning until 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And then in the evening it'll be cheaper. So if we switch our consumption to those cheaper periods, we could potentially save.
So is the gist of it is if you knew how much you were paying on an hourly basis, you might be more inclined to turn off the lights?
Turn off the lights, but perhaps the bigger issue would be turn down your air conditioning unit, wait and turn on your dishwasher in the evening as opposed to sort of when you just get home, things like that.
Are these the tools that the province says Ontarians need to be able to more effectively manage their electricity costs?
The smart meter definitely is one, but I believe there are two other appropriate pieces that go along with this, and there are organizations working on this. The ministry and the OEB are working on this. A proper pricing plan, and the price that's going to come into effect April 1st. Unfortunately, it's an increase, but it is a stepped method to get the proper pricing plan. And then the third component is essentially what PwC and our colleagues are calling a consumer dashboard, which is like a speedometer in your car. If you've ever driven your car going down the road without your speedometer working, you really don't know how fast you're going. That's really what electricity consumers are faced with today. So they need a real-time device inside their house, and the technology exists to show the real price of electricity at that instant in time. So if the person comes home in the evening, fills up the dishwasher after dinner, if they see the price of electricity is a certain point, and they know it's going to be cheaper at 10 o'clock at night, then go look at the meter at 10 o'clock at night. Yes, indeed, the price is cheaper. Turn on my dishwasher or clothing.
You really buy it? Do you really buy the idea that we're willing to walk over to a dashboard on an hourly basis, go, oh, maybe I ought to wait to turn the dishwasher on?
Part of the advice that I provide clients, part of the biggest issue in any kind of change is so-called change management, and related to that is consumer education. So getting consumers to actually change their behavior will be a challenge. There's no doubt about it. The technology can be put in place, the pricing plans can be put in place, but people will have to behave differently.
Will energy prices ultimately be coming down more so than going up long term with the Bruce Power facility in Ontario looking at restarting the two remaining reactors, which could bring the grand total of 8 of them online.
Yes. More generation is better. I mean, it's classic supply and demand, like any market. The more supply there is, you know, it'll bring prices down over time, and consumers will have choices. Today, we're in a situation where we don't have a lot of excess supply, even though we're better than we were a couple of years ago. So those plants, as they come online, will definitely help. In the short term, prices will go up, but you know, as any market stabilizes and businesses understand how to play in that market, then prices should come down.
Does PwC see increased investment in energy, electricity infrastructure as a result of removing these caps?
What we're seeing in the market is there is more interest in the market now, entering as generators in the market. There were generators that were ready to enter Ontario a couple of years ago when the market initially opened, and pulled back because the rules were not certain. There was just too much variability, too many unknowns, and again, comparing it to any market, when there's unknowns, there's not a lot of stability, there's not necessarily a lot of liquidity. We're starting now, I think, to build back some of those key elements that will help drive this market forward.
But what's the tangible evidence that shows that if we release these caps, we move closer to a free market environment, that in fact there will be enough cash interest by corporations to build new facilities to generate more electricity?
I mean, for sure, there's no guarantees, right? These projects, these generation plants are very capital intensive. However, they're very long term as well. And when businesses know the rules, then at least they can build their business cases around that and see if it makes sense to do so.
George, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Good morning. George O'Neill is Senior Manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Coming up, Linda Nazareth with a preview to the economic data out this week.